Good morning and welcome back to the Closers Inner Circle podcast with your host, Denise Griffitts and Bengay III. And our topic today is teaching the next generation, the next sales generation, what every older sales pro wishes they'd passed on. And our intention is to dig into the lessons that every seasoned sales professional wishes that they had either paid attention to themselves or passed on much earlier. And from the fundamentals that never go out of style to the stories and the strategies, that shaped decades of success, this conversation is about equipping tomorrow's closers with the wisdom of those who came before. Now, you're going to hear about some of the mistakes that taught Ben, losing my voice as usual, his biggest lessons, the principles that have stood the test of time, and the kind of practical advice that young sales people can put to work immediately. So whether you're just starting out in sales or you've been closing deals for years, you will come away with ideas that you can use now and a renewed appreciation for the power of mentorship in sales. And we are sponsored today by What's Right with America. It's a book by Paul Johnson and Larry Aldridge. Honestly, it's one of my favorite books. Are you tired of all the negativity in the news? I don't watch the news because of it. This book offers a refreshing perspective. Johnson and Aldrich, they are seasoned leaders in government, business, and media, and they don't pretend that America is perfect, but they won't let our flaws be the whole story. They focus instead on the courage, the innovation, generosity, and determination that define this country. And their message is clear: liberty, free enterprise, and democratic values have always helped Americans solve problems and build a better future. You can find What's Right with America and How We Keep It That Way now on Amazon. Ben, good morning.
Good morning.
It's Wednesday.
Yeah. Uh, Denise Griffitts Day. And as soon as we're off the phone, I take out the trash today.
I'm so glad that you put me first.
Yeah, those are my two big Wednesday events.
Oh, there you go. Well, that's exciting. Denise and trash. Oh, God. I won't be hurt. I'm okay. So, anyway, you reminded me in the virtual green room that for the last 2 weeks, I've been promising to get back to W. Clement Stone because we talked about him 2 weeks ago in our podcast. So you reminded me, and then once you've explained what it was that he did that was so important, particularly with Dr. Napoleon Hill, then we can get back to our regular, we're going to talk, and we're probably not going to make much sense kind of thing that we do every week.
We'll do it right up front and have it behind us. W. Clement Stone, I don't know who would not know about him, but W. Clement Stone headed up Combined Insurance, one of the, I don't know their current situation, but at the time, one of the largest insurance companies in the country, if not the world, with a killer direct sales force that they used. And he was a motivational speaker. Not that he needed to be, but he was because he enjoyed it. And he was filled with pithy little quotes and so on. And had one of those gamblers drawn on mustaches that sort of made him clownish looking, but he was a dead serious guy and adjusted for inflation, a billionaire with a B, and wonderful guy. I only met him, I'm guessing, 2-3 times. We weren't close buddies, but I went to a seminar he was doing. He went to one or two of mine, and you tend to meet and hi, how are you? And it was rather quick, but I was impressed with him. He's one of those people who had a presence about him. When you met him, if you didn't know his name, didn't know his title, you'd know that you met somebody important. It was a life force. So anyway, Dr. Napoleon Hill had been my mentor, originally paid for by my boss, William Penpatrick, the first year. And then we had another year and a half before he passed away. And he was a huge influence in my life. I'm sort of drawing a little circle about how few of us were there at the beginning of a lot of things. So I've left Holiday Magic Cosmetics. I'm now looking for something to do. I found this company uh, founded and owned by a guy named Morris Pickus, who in his day was a pretty big deal as a business consultant. It was called the Personnel Institute, and everything was set up and running, and he had clients and everything. So all I had to do was buy it, and I had a not a thriving business, but a business, and without having to reinvent the wheel. So he comes up to meet with me from Southern California. He had a house that overlooked a racetrack, Del Mar, I think it was, up on a hill looking down on Del Mar. It was a really semi-spectacular place with binoculars. You could watch the races all day and without having to pay or risk any money gambling. And so anyway, he comes up and we're meeting. He said, I understand that you worked with Dr. Napoleon Hill. And I said, yeah, I did. He was my mentor and so on. He said, well, I was responsible for that. I'd never heard of Morris Pickus, didn't know how he could possibly be responsible for that. And then he told me the story. He, uh, Morris Pickus, was calling on W. Clement Stone at Combined Insurance for some reason, probably to sell him consulting services or something. And back in those days, this is many years ago, it was not uncommon for a person calling on someone else to bring them a gift. Today, if you went to a friend's house, you might bring the lady or the gentleman a bottle of wine as a hostess gift. Well, that used to be rather common in business. Somebody would bring you, it might just be a paperweight, but my office is filled with that type of thing where people have given me paperweights or letter openers or whatever over the years, usually with their name on them. So Morris is at the airport. I wouldn't swear to every detail of the story because I didn't know how significant it was when I was first listening to it. But Morris is at the airport. He's landed. He's going to see W. Clement Stone, and he doesn't have a gift. So he goes in their gift shop, bookstore, whatever, and he's looking around and he sees a book that he'd never read, but he'd heard of because it had been a pretty big deal for a while years before. It was called Think and Grow Rich by Dr. Napoleon Hill. So he bought it and took it with him. And when he walked in, uh, Clem Stone stood up and greeted him and so on, and he handed him the book. He said, I saw this book and I thought from what I've heard about you, it would be of interest to you. And Clem Stone said, so I'm paraphrasing, but he said, oh, I've heard of it, but I've never read it. Thank you so much. So he took the book. They did business, whatever they were going to do that day, and the meeting ended. Clem Stone took the book home and read it. And for him, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. For him, it was life changing. I've had people read Think and Grow Rich and go, oh, that was nice. And like it didn't happen. And I've had other friends, relatives, et cetera, who've read it and turned their lives around as a result. Clem Stone was sort of that guy, except he was already rich and successful. But he just loved the book. So he instructed, I think he had 100, 300,000 people working for him, agents and other staff members. He instructed all of them. He wanted them to read Think and Grow Rich, which of course required them to buy Think and Grow Rich at their local bookstore. And they sold the book, I repeat, had died down. They sold a couple of 100,000 copies just to people from Combined Insurance, brought it back to the top of the best-selling book lists, and got bookstores to stock it around the country, and brought Napoleon Hill back from relative obscurity. him and Think and Grow Rich. They both were trivia questions at that point. And he met Clem Stone, Dr. Hill did, and they hit it off. And Clem Stone became his manager and seminar promoter. Dr. Hill was not a great promoter. He was uh, a brain. You know, he could sit and talk to you with, look you dead in the eyes and be writing a book with the other hand. Uh, and
You've mentioned that before when he was sitting at your table in your office and
yeah,
head down, and you're convinced that he was writing books.
he was on legal. He typed his stuff. He had an old-fashioned typewriter, and I got a duplicate of it and put it in his bedroom at our house. And late at night, I'd hear tap, tap. He was not one of the great typists of our time, but when he didn't have access to a typewriter, he always had yellow legal pads with him, and he was always writing. I never saw him sitting around doing nothing or drumming his fingers. He was talking to somebody, trying to help him, or writing. I guess the exception would be eating breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Other than that, if he was awake, he was trying to teach you something, share something, or he was writing. So Clem Stone read it, required everybody at Combined Insurance to get it, brought back Napoleon Hill and Think and Grow Rich from the dead, and turned him once again into a best-selling author, uh, filled up seminars for him. If, let's say, he was going to Chicago, Stone could fill a room with his own people, and they were required to be there. And they would publicize it to the outside world and so on. And Dr. Hill used to laugh with me, saying, I thought I'd suddenly gotten smart again. And then he realized it was Clem Stone, and because Morris Pickus gave him a book. So back he came from the dead, and that's what Morris Pickus was talking about when he said, it's because of me you worked with Dr. Hill. Because what he really meant was if he hadn't given that book to Clem Stone, I never would have heard of Dr. Hill or Think and Grow Rich. And today, its second life or third life was so much stronger. It is more talked about today and sold than at any time before. And if only with those people who buy it to put it on their coffee table or on their desk, so people will think they've read it. I complimented Dr. Hill one day, and I said he was looking at a copy that my wife had put on the coffee table in the living room to impress him that we sat around reading his book every night, and
You
which we
didn't?
we didn't.
I'm shocked.
We walked in the living room. I was embarrassed. I thought, oh my God, that's talk about obvious. There's Think and Grow Rich, some magazines, but the book, Think and Grow Rich, was the only book on the coffee table. And it was aimed at an angle to where you came down the hall and entered the living room. You couldn't miss it. But I said to him, Dr. Hill, how does it, trying to find something to cover up for the awkwardness? I said, Dr. Hill, how does it feel to have written one of the best-selling books of all time? They used to say it was second only to Bible. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what they said. And he said, best-selling, least read.
Right.
And one of his games was to go into an office, somebody had Think and Grow Rich out, and open it up and see if the binding had ever been cracked. As you know, I have two copies of Think and Grow Rich here on my desk. One is the new one. It's exactly like the old one as far as word for word, page for page, layout. Everything's the same, but it's got a new cover on it. And the other one I have is from 1937, where Mrs. Grace Dixon, it was autographed to her by him, and the binding has never been cracked. And I've told you this before. I know the publishing business now. I didn't when I started, but now I do. She heard he was coming to town. Don't know Mrs. Grace Dixon, but here's what happened. She heard he was coming to town, either to speak to her company or her church. I don't know, but he was coming. So she went, probably had to buy a ticket to get in. And once she got in, Dr. Hill, uh, from the front of the room, sold or offered Think and Grow Rich. She bought one. And I wish we were on camera so I could show you. Here's what happened next. The front of the one I have, the binding has never been cracked except where Dr. Hill opened the front cover so he could sign it. That front cover has been opened. You can tell it. None of the other pages have ever been looked at. And the front of the book is cherry red, just like it was the night she bought it. And the back of the book is cherry red. And the spine of the book is so bleached out you can barely read Think and Grow Rich and so on it. Here's why. She bought it. She took it home, probably with the best of intentions, stuck it in her bookcase, and there it sat with the sun passing over it once a day for the next 75 years. And so no good came from it. So I said all that back to Clem Stone for a moment. That was an interesting and small world. I'm buying a company from a guy who gave Clem Stone his first copy of Think and Grow Rich and who brought Dr. Napoleon Hill back from the dead. And Dr. Napoleon Hill worked for me the last two and a half years of his life. So an incredibly small, tight circle, except for me, of important people in the world. So one day I read, or a friend of mine told me that Clem Stone was coming up on his 100th birthday. And I thought, I'm going to call him. I had his name and number. I assumed it was still good. I called him, and a man answered the phone. And I said, hi, my name's Ben Gay. I won't claim I'm a friend, but I'm an acquaintance of Mr. Stone. And he said, yes, I'm right here with Clem now. I didn't know you were allowed to call him Clem. So, but that was the name he went by to friends. So he said, would you like to speak to him? And I said, yes. I said, you're so nice. Who are you? He said, well, I'm his male nurse. And Mr. Stone is here in bed, and he'd love to talk to you. So he put him on, and we had a nice little chat. He pretended like he remembered me. I don't know if that's true or not, but he was awful good at people relationships. And we talked for a little bit, and then I could tell he was sort of tired. So I said, well, I'm going to let you go, Clem. But by then he said, call me Clem. I'm going to let you go, Clem. But if you don't mind, I'd like to reach out and talk to you from time to time. He said, anytime. I'm putting your name on my preferred list. And we said goodbye and hung up. He died the next morning. It's possible I was his last phone call.
Oh my.
And the male nurse that I was talking to, today we would call him a hospice nurse. He was
Right.
he was there for the end of Clem Stone's life.
Yeah,
So
but it sounds like Clem Stone wasn't giving in. He was like, I'm still here. You're on my list. Let's talk again.
yeah,
He wasn't
yeah.
planning on going anywhere.
No, he had which you're entitled to have at 100. He had an old man's voice and
Right.
didn't sound like he was going to get up and run around the block, but he was still mentally sharp. Glad I called, wanted me to call back. Oh, and I told him the story. I said, a guy named Morris Pickus, I bought a company from, and he said that he gave in, and he cut me off, and he said, he gave me my first copy of Think and Grow Rich. He said, you and I are talking today because of Morris Pickus. I said, so he wasn't lying? And he said, you haven't read all my books. And I said, okay, I'll bite. How do you know that? He said, because in the front of, and he named one of his books, I tell the story of how Morris Pickus brought me my first copy of Think and Grow Rich.
Oh, now I have to go find one of those books.
Yeah. I'm not sure which one it was. I probably got a copy of it in here, but it was just a tight little circle. The only sort of odd person in the group was Morris Pickus. He was not one of my favorite people on earth. By the time I knew him, he was a grumpy old man. But Clem Stone, older than Morris Pickus, still had his wits about him. Napoleon Hill went to bed the last few months of his life, but he was still sharp on the phone and a wonderful guy.
Mhm.
So I have a certain amount of fame, having been a quasi friend of Clem Stone, a good friend of Dr. Napoleon Hill, and an associate of Morris Pickus. And that's how come we're talking about Think and Grow Rich and Clem Stone today.
And I'm going to have to go look him up. How do you spell his last name?
Stone, Stone,
No, no, Pickus, Morris
P
Pickus.
I P I C K U S.
Okay, because I was looking, I couldn't find anything, but I made a couple of notes while you were talking about Clem Stone's mustache. I instantly had a picture in my head of, Clark Gable and Gone with the Wind, and I went and looked at both of them. Yep, there it is. He was wearing Clark Gable's mustache. So,
And Stone's was a little more like a gambler, riverboat gambler, but I know what you're talking about.
yeah.
Dark mustache
And
against pale
skinny.
skin.
You're
Yeah.
right. Skinny. You can see. I, I th- I thought it was attractive on both of them, to be honest. Okay, so now I'm writing down notes. So one of the things that I wanted to ask you, and honestly, if anybody were to come in my house, they'd spot several different versions of Napoleon Hill. A year to grow, Think and Grow Rich. I do have one that's kind of one of those books. It's in, leather. It's got the gilded pages. I won't even open it. It's for looks only.
That's for showing off.
Right, right. And I show it off to me. But but I've got one in my bedroom. I'm looking at one over here right next to the closers books. I've read them. But what I wanted to ask you, oh, I know what I wanted to say too. The other night I was listening to Charles F. I think it's Hanel, Hanel, the Master Key System. And
Hmm.
apparently Napoleon Hill sent him a letter and said, I wouldn't be doing what I was doing if I hadn't read you.
Wow.
Yeah. I thought, well, that's interesting. Now, when I listened to it, it's kind of tedious. It's not new stuff because I've already listened to Napoleon Hill and you, and it's like, okay, but this is apparently where Dr. Hill got a lot of his inspiration. This man was older than him. So I thought that was, I'd never heard of him. Now I'd heard of the Master Keys. I think Napoleon Hill had a book called The Master Keys, but I didn't realize that it had reached even further back in history.
They were an interesting bunch. That crowd, Dale Carnegie,
Right.
uh, and gang. Og Mandino was a little younger than them, but not much. And that's where you learn. From time to time, I'll say something that I would attribute it to the person who said it if I knew, but it's just become part of me. And I'll say something, and if they're a self-improvement aficionado, they'll say, Earl Nightingale, The Strangest Secret, 1956. I go, oh, great.
I, I know I know some of the, I've listened to him a lot, but I couldn't tell you when it was. I'm not that good at it, but
Yeah.
yeah, I know what you're talking about.
And Earl Nightingale, I think since they're both long gone, I think I can talk openly about this. I have before. Earl, on two or three occasions, by coincidence, they were both in town at the same time, and they both stayed at the house. And Earl didn't have a room at the house like Dr. Hill did, but there was 3 rooms down that hallway, and Dr. Hill was always in the first one. Earl tended to go the second one, so they were a little territorial. And Earl was says in one of his recordings that where the strangest secret came from, the strangest secret being you become what you think about, came to him one Saturday morning while reading Think and Grow Rich in his study. And he says something, I'm paraphrasing, the writing was tedious. Uh, it was awkward. So and so. He had nothing good to say about it, about Think and Grow Rich, except for the fact he got you become what you think about. And I was reading something the other day, and I thought, there's the sentence. it wasn't you become what you think about, but it was what you think about you become, or so, you know what I mean? It was
Right, right.
the same thing. That's in Think and Grow Rich, and that's what Earl Nightingale read to start his illustrious career. He went on to become the most listened to radio voice in the world at the time, heard daily on 700 radio stations in the United States and Canada. Uh, and he was Sky King. For those of you old enough to remember Sky King, a personality on the radio, later on television, who flew around saving people in his airplane with his niece Penny, who we were all in love with, and pretty little blonde. And Earl was the voice of Sky King on the radio. So that's all the good news. Two good friends, two mentors of mine, Dr. Hill and Earl Nightingale. Dr. Hill never expressed to me uh, anything one way or the other. He was just a gracious Southern gentleman. Earl, having recorded that he didn't like Think and Grow Rich and thought it was poorly written and uh, tedious, uh, didn't. It was obvious. He was polite to him, but it was obvious he didn't have a whole lot of love or respect for Napoleon Hill. Now, put them in a house together at close quarters for 3 days, and I felt like I was, you know, trying to keep peace. I wouldn't leave them alone in a room together. I would make sure one of us was there. Not that I thought Earl would be rude, but Earl was very sardonic and didn't hide his emotions well. I was afraid he would show his mild disdain for Dr. Hill. And I never really understood it. Earl was an excellent writer. After he told me that, after I heard that, and then he reinforced it, I've read Think and Grow Rich several times since then, and it is a little tedious, mainly because it was written so long ago.
Right, right.
Yeah,
Wallace Wattles, Napoleon Hill, this recording I was listening to, Charles Hanel, I guess that's how you pronounce it. It was tedious because there was nothing new there for me because I'd already started backwards, with
yeah,
Earl
yeah,
Nightingale and, Napoleon Hill. There wasn't, even Wallace Wattles, there was nothing new there for me. Had I never heard of it, it would have been probably groundbreaking, but it wasn't.
yeah. When Wednesday, September 15th, 1965, the day I joined Holiday Magic Cosmetics, my sponsor, a guy named Bill Dempsey, said, "You're young and you're going to need a little help. So this will help bring you up to speed." And he gave me the record of The Strangest Secret. It's sitting right here on my desk now, somewhat weathered. In the bottom, if I didn't hold it right, the record would fall out of the folder. And so why don't you put Scotch tape on it? That'd be like penciling corrections in the Bible.
Right.
So I've
You know how I
chosen,
feel about marking up books.
yeah, I just am very careful about how I pick it up. And I don't have a copy that Bill Dempsey gave me, but he also handed me Think and Grow Rich. He said, read this several times, then read it once a year for the rest of your life. And he said, the record is easier. Go home and play this tonight and for the next several nights, and then play it at least once a week for the rest of your career. Now, I haven't done that in either case, but I've listened to it many, many, many times, and I've read Think and Grow Rich many times. Those were for modern personal development, those were the two starting points: Think and Grow Rich, and then you become what you think about, taken from one sentence in Think and Grow Rich, and then added to by Napoleon Hill. Was a wonderful writer, tedious though he might be at times. And Earl was the voice of God.
He was.
Yeah, I think I told you, he said one day I was in his office at 333 North Michigan Avenue, up in his office, third floor, I think. He said, "We're going to lunch with a friend of mine." I said, "Fine." We went down the steps or the elevator. across the bridge to a restaurant within sight of his office, separated by whatever river that is that goes through Chicago. And we walk in, and a guy who I didn't know, didn't recognize, I'd never seen a picture of him, stood up, looked me dead in the eyes, and smiled. And so I knew this is who we're going to meet because he recognized Earl. And I stuck out my hand and I said, "Hi, I'm Ben Gay." And he said in that wonderful voice of his, "I'm Paul Harvey."
I would have fainted on the spot.
I almost did. I'm being followed by Earl Nightingale shaking the hand of Paul Harvey. And I told you I sat there at lunch trying to say as little as possible. We were advertising on Paul Harvey's show, and Earl was the voice of Holiday Magic and all of our affiliated companies, and we were his largest client. So although I was young and had a voice like Minnie Mouse, uh, I was an equal. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
By business standards, they were. It was not by accident they set up a lunch with the three of us, and I was the guest star. That's all looking back. At the time, I'm sitting there going, "How did I get in this situation?" And when I get in
Honestly, you and I have talked about this
yeah,
before. Those are every one of those things was God winks, I'm telling you. It didn't happen by happenstance, it happened because it was meant to, and you paid attention to every bit of it.
yeah, you've got that right. I remember what we ate. You know, uh, it was one of those pinch me things. And then whenever interesting things like that would happen, if I had a chance, I'd call my mother and father in Atlanta. You won't believe this. And my mother, dad would if dad was on the phone calling the home, I was most likely to get my mother. Uh, Dad would engage in a few little questions here and there, but my mother would say, "No, you didn't."
Oh.
Ern Westmore, part of the the Westmores of Hollywood, makeup artists,
Oh,
the most famous in the world. Ern Westmore, one of the five brothers, the father started the tradition, and then the five brothers followed along. And at one time, every one of them was head of makeup at a major studio in Hollywood. Every studio had a Westmore at the head of its beauty or fashion or makeup departments. So, and Ern used to go on an old show. I realize a lot of people listening to this will go, "Who the hell is he talking about?" But there used to be a show on television in America, the Art Linkletter show. It's called House Party. And Art Linkletter was a big deal. You turned
wasn't
on,
he the guy that liked, he was always talking about kids or helping kids or making
kids say the
kids.
darndest things.
That's it, okay.
Yeah. And growing old is not for sissies.
Yeah, there's that.
So anyway, I called my mother. I'm president of Holiday Magic, and Ern Westmore works for me. But this is slightly before that. I went to New York to give a talk, and Ern was going on before me. He was already with Holiday Magic, vice president of whatever beauty, and he said, "Will you join me for lunch?" And I said, "Certainly," because I'm looking at somebody I grew up watching on television. And I said, "Certainly." So we went to the Carnegie Deli. It's now gone, but one of the great delicatessens on earth. And he taught me how you dealt with those. That's a whole separate story. But the Carnegie Deli was an interesting place filled with New York Jews who did not suffer fools gladly. And it was easy to be identified as a fool if you didn't know how to order. So anyway, we go to the Carnegie Deli, and he says, let me guide you through this. Do you like pastrami?" Yeah. So he ordered for both of us. During that lunch, Ern said, "Would you mind if I introduce you tonight? I know I'm going on before you. And, would you mind?" And I said, "No, I'd be honored." So I go back to the hotel, park share, and call mother. And I said, "I just had lunch with Ern Westmore, and he's going to introduce me tonight at the meeting." And she said, "No, you didn't." So it
I've
was a
told you
big
before,
story.
I think your mom was fabulous.
But I was just the smart ass little kid who probably, wasn't going to amount to much. I was the class clown. Maybe I'd be the clown at some company. So when I'm suddenly hobnobbing with these people, she just really had a hard time adjusting to it. And she enjoyed giving me a hard time. We ran an ad in the Wall Street Journal one time, and a quarter page ad. And to start my outside speaking business, I'd already given hundreds of meetings within the company and industry, the beauty industry. But now we're going to branch out. And the headline was a legend in his own time. So I sent Mother a copy of the whole Wall Street Journal it was in, and then called her. What do you think? She said, well, the title is wrong. I said, what do you mean? She said it should be a legend in his own mind.
I knew that was coming. No mother worth her salt would give that a pass. I'm sorry. It just would not happen.
To finish a somewhat memorable story that our listeners might enjoy or find interesting, Ern introduced me, got up and did his thing. Oh, and I said to him over lunch, because he was eating heart pills like they were M&Ms,
Oh, no.
nitroglycerin, I found out. And he said, yeah, I've got a pretty bad heart thing, had a couple heart attacks and so on, but I'm fine, you know. So he goes up to introduce me, does his narc. Oh, and I said to him, well, if you had to go, how would you want to go or be remembered? He said, I want to go on stage in front of a large audience talking to ladies about beauty and fashion, because his catchphrase is, through the arch of a brow and the bow of a lip, there is no woman in the world who cannot be made more beautiful. So with that, we finish up our lunch, go back to the hotel. I call Mother. She calls me a liar. you know, and I go to the meeting. Well, I walked in. I'd done meetings 400 or 500 people in Atlanta and was getting well known in the company, but I hadn't done any big things yet. I walk into the Park Sheridan ballroom. There's 5,000 people jammed in there on 2 or 3 levels with the balconies. And I almost, and they were seated, they were already there, and Ern was being introduced. I almost ran from the room. I mean, I literally was backing towards the door, thinking they don't know I'm here. I could say
I got hit by a car. I couldn't make it.
yeah, trying to get here. I got hit by a car.
Right.
So, and just as all that's crossing my mind, I didn't realize Ern had given his talk. He was now winding down and was in the throes of introducing me. So I'm standing at the edge of the stage, 6 steps up. I remember it perfectly. Got 1 foot on the lower step, and I'm thinking about running, and a spotlight hits me. Somebody up in the rafters knew I was coming, and they put a spotlight on me. And now Ern has a spotlight. I have a spotlight. It's a little difficult to run under those conditions. And then he said, and today I had lunch with a guy who I'm convinced will be president of this company. I don't know if he said one day or soon or something. Uh, and great guy, dynamic young man, blah, blah, blah. Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce Benjamin Franklin Gay the Third. And as he said third, the D wasn't quite out of his mouth. He dropped dead in front of 5,000 people. And and I operated on scripts where I'm supposed to get up and say, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Ben Gay. I'm a general distributor with Holiday Magic. It's my pleasure to welcome you to tonight's special meeting and go on for 37 minutes explaining the business and getting them to join. I didn't know anything else. I knew the script and go home, or the script and sit down and close people. And even that was done with scripted closes. So it was obvious he was dead. He looked like he'd been shot with an elephant gun. But the medics had to come in and check him. And finally, one of them looked up and said, he's gone, sir, or he's dead.
Right.
And I said, okay. They dimmed the light on him, but I'm still in the spotlight. because at that moment I would have left. I would have been gone. And they put him on the Stokes litter and began to roll him out off the stage. And I said to them, I had, as Ern just told you, or Mr. Westmore, whatever I called him in those days, as Ern just told you, I had lunch with him today, and during lunch, I asked him how he would like to go. And he said he would like to go in front of a large audience, high percentage of women in it, talking about beauty and fashion. Because, as he said, through the arch of a brow and the bow of a lip, there isn't a woman in the world who cannot be made more beautiful. So he's had his wish. Let's give him one last standing ovation. And 5,000 people stood up. And I heard later from hotel management, you could hear it all over the lobby, the dining room, and so on. They thought a riot had broken out. And they gave Ern Westmore his last standing ovation. Then the doors went flap, flap as he and the medics went through it. And I turned around, the spotlight's still on me. I thought this nightmare was going to go away. It's still, it's still me. So here's my best presentation, thanks to scripting. I said, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Ben Gay. I'm a general distributor with Holiday Magic Cosmetics. It's my pleasure to welcome you to tonight's special meeting. Did my 37 minutes, showed the film. When the film ends, said, turn to the person who brought you here and ask how you can get started in Holiday Magic. Lights came up, people got out their legal pads, started drawing circles. I'm guessing with 5,000 people in the room, about half of them, 2,500 will say, were distributors, and about 2,500 of them were prospects. Our closing rate after a good meeting was usually 40, 50%. That night, we closed right at 90% of all the people in that room. So I've joked about it over the years in doing sales training. So if you want to drive your closing rate up, find a very special, well-known celebrity to introduce you and have him being willing to die on stage right after the introduction, because
Ow.
that will drive up your closing rate like you wouldn't believe.
And honestly, I would have thought that people, would have done the standing ovation and said, "Oh, I gotta go now."
Sat back down.
I'm shocked by that. I really am.
Yeah, it was an interest. One thing that did for me, I'm sorry we lost Ern, but there are benefits of bad situations also. One of the things that did for me, it inoculated me from bad things happening in front of audiences. And I've had some really bad things happen in front of audiences, uh, and that would have brought a normal person to the end of their speaking career. But when you have a famous person, A, introduce you, and B, die, and you still have to give a presentation to those same people, there's not much that can rattle me on stage. I mean,
I guess not.
you could bring somebody in, have them kneel down, and execute them. And after we call the police and all, I'd say, okay, well, as I was saying,
Oh my God. Okay, but now I have to interrupt and say, okay, I know you called your mama. What did she say?
about Ern,
Yeah.
I could make up something knowing her as I do, but I really don't recall. I think she heard about it later because we were busy taking care of Ern and the body and getting it back to California and so on. And she'd already called me a liar for saying I'd even had lunch with him.
Okay,
So,
never mind.
yeah,
Oh,
I think
my.
in later conversations, things like, how'd you get through that? I said, scripting,
Yeah.
scripting.
Well, and you and I have talked about that a lot. You have to have your scripts, and believe me, I do. I have them handy all the time because I don't have any filters. I never know what I'm going to say until I've
Yeah.
already said it. You're the
Yep.
same way. And we have to have those little documents in front of, I do have that document in front of me to keep me on the straight and narrow.
When Gigi and I first got together, we lived elsewhere and we were invited to a housewarming or something. uh, by somebody at their place. Knock on the door. Homeowner opens the door and she says, "Hi, I'm Gigi Gay. I'm Ben Gay's husband. I have no idea what he's going to say to you or anyone else, and I'm not responsible for it." And she walked in and left me standing on the front steps, having just been introduced as uh, a strange creep who was now going to insult everybody in the party. But
The women in your life, I'm telling you.
yeah, I said,
And now
"How?"
you've got me. I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
how did you earn all of
I
this?
thought I was done, and then you came along.
Sorry. But Gigi loves me.
She sure does. So anyway, wrapping up, let's touch quickly on some of the things that haven't changed, or I wish somebody had told me in the beginning, and they are as follows: selling has not changed. Buzzwords have. High-tech words have crept in. We use the computer now and so on, but the basics of selling haven't changed probably ever, but I know for a fact since the days of the silk traders, a couple of thousand years ago, as they were sailing to the Orient, selling things back and forth between there and Europe. And more recently, since the days of the Yankee peddler riding horseback on through New England a couple of 100 years ago or 300 years ago, whatever it's been. The secret to selling is sell a quality product or service. That's first and foremost. If you're not willing to do that, you're either going to fail at selling and or become a con man or con woman because you're selling something that's not the best you could be selling. Therefore, you have to lie about it when objections come up. Well, so and so's better. Well, not really, because so and so. Well, it is better, and you should have been selling it. I once did a seminar for a bunch of automobile dealers, mixed dealerships, mixed brands, and somewhere in the conversation, a guy raised his hand and said, "Mr. Gay, and he pointed to 10 or 12 people around him, we sell Yugos." For those of you too young to know, Yugo was a piece of junk made in
I had
Yugoslavia.
you told me this story once, and I had to go look at them and go, people bought that?
A
I
piece of
wouldn't
junk
have it sit next to the trash can.
made in Yugoslavia and shipped here because it was the cheapest car sold in America by a new Cadillac was $6,000. Yugo was, I'm making up numbers, was 1,200 or whatever, and we're having trouble selling it. And I said, "No kidding." And they said, how can we sell more cars? I said, "Go back to your dealership tonight, clear out your desk, and go sell Chevrolets or Cadillacs or, what, make up a name of a good quality product, and your sales will skyrocket." It was a guy who I didn't know and never saw or heard from again, but I heard through the grapevine that the entire Yugo sales team that was there that night went back to the office, cleaned out their desk, and left. Someone got out of the car business, probably. Others went to Chevrolet or Cadillac or Ford or whatever, where they would have confidence in their product. So, rule one, sell a quality product or service. Not willing to do that, forget about selling, go find something else to do. Then, uh, that is competitively priced. Doesn't have to be the cheapest, but if you're selling a car for $10,000 that everybody knows is only worth five, you're screwed. And then spend your time talking to people qualified to buy it. And that can be done. There are a lot of things geographically, perhaps, monetarily, religiously. One guy who's the top guy in the automobile sales world, the top guy, is Muslim, and 90% of his business comes from the Muslim community where he works, where his dealership is. So if you're Muslim, you go to him. He's a great guy and a wonderful salesman, but if you're Muslim, you go to him. If you're a Southern Baptist, you may not have that pull. So quality product, competitively priced, spend your time talking to qualified people, and then uh, make sure that you're straight with your customers. Straight. You be straight. As I tell all my customers, you be straight with me, I'll be straight with you. And on that happy basis, we can have an honest relationship. If I don't know something, I will say, I don't know. Three of the hardest words for some people in the English language to say. If you've made a ridiculously low offer to me, I use my one word sentence. No.
No.
Yeah.
My favorite
It-
word.
yeah.
Everybody who knows me, that is my favorite word.
Yeah. Mine too. And it saves a lot of time and effort. So, and then the other thing that hasn't changed is what people want. Here's what a customer wanted 2,000 years ago, what they wanted 300 years ago, and what they want this morning. They want to know what's in it for me. And until you answer that, you're going to be a mid-level, answer it clearly, concisely, and the answer may change 10 times during the day if you talk to 10 different people. They don't want to know what's in it for everybody else. They want to know what's in it for me. And if you
Right.
answer
What are they investing in? What are they purchasing?
right,
What good is it going to do them? It's
when I
easy.
reach when I reach in my pocket and give you my $10,000 or $50,000 or whatever, will I be happy in that I got in exchange from that your product or service? If the answer is yes, we got a deal. Although I'm a sales trainer, among other things, it takes the sales training out of it. If you fulfill the first three things I told you and then answer the fourth one satisfactorily, it doesn't require a uh, hotshot salesperson to sell. You're done because that's all they want to know. The old saying, I read it this morning, somebody posted it like they wrote it, but people love to buy, they don't like to be sold. And Cary Grant said the secret of acting was not to get caught at it. That's also the secret of selling. My sales infiltration method is selling, highly effective selling, but you don't know it because I put you, the customer, first. And here's how I do that little secret, how I put the customer first. Every sales situation I'm in, I ask myself, how would I want to be treated in this situation? For instance, when somebody says, uh, what's it cost? People, there's whole training seminars on how to avoid that question. Uh, if I ask you, how much does it cost? You answer it or I'm gone. I don't want to
Oh, yeah.
store it.
I was
Yeah,
just going to say, why do you need to be trained not to avoid that? Honestly, I've had people, especially in my web development company, because we'll talk for a little bit, and I'll basically convince them that they don't want to copy somebody else's website, and then we move from there. But pretty early on in the conversation, they'll say, well, what is this going to cost me? And I'll tell them
yeah.
right then, right there. They can either accept it or not.
And they'll want more information if they were qualified anyway.
That's
But if you
exactly right.
if you duck and weave my basic question, what's it cost? Then I shut down. First of all, I'll shake your hand and say goodbye. Is that your final answer? You're not going to tell me goodbye because there's always someplace else I can get your stuff. Make up a product, and I'll find somebody that made it up before you, and I can buy it from them.
Pickle relish. I found that pickle relish, by the way.
Have you ordered it yet?
I can find it in my grocery store. It's a different it's a
Oh,
different name, but it's the same company. It's marketed differently here.
okay. The Southerners don't want to hear they're buying from a Yankee.
No, I don't care. If it
It
tastes
is.
good,
It
I
is
want it.
magnificent. Yeah, and there's a perfect example. Our grocery store here carries it, and the lady Sherry who recommended it to me, uh, no, said, look on the back. You can get the website. If we stop carrying it for some reason, go go there and order it. Because I said I'm never again buying or eating anybody else's relish. This is unbelievable. I have been caught with a jar in one hand, a spoon in the other, eating right out of the jar. I don't need baked beans to put it on. It's that good. Let me tell you a quick Sherry story, and we're running out of time. When you live in a small town, everybody knows everybody. You hear a lot more humor and sarcasm that you might hear in New York or Atlanta or somewhere, because you know the person. You know, I check out with Sherry, Gigi and I check out with her. It's for the 500th time. The other day, Gigi's in line. I wasn't there. A guy in front of her, big burly guy, said it looked like he just came off a construction site moments before. And he says to Sherry, he holds up some chocolate milk. He said, "This isn't the kind I normally get. Where's the so and so?" She said, "We don't carry that anymore." "Oh, no, you've got," and Gigi said, this big burly guy starts whining. And Sherry says to him, "You're a grown ass man, George. Get,
Knock it off.
yeah, get through it." I thought only in Placerville would
Oh,
a
I
trip
don't know. That would happen here too.
for a grown ass man get through. And I said, I was thinking of you when I was talking to her. I said to her, "Sherry, Gigi told me about that conversation." And she said, you know, I felt sort of bad about it because she said, "I don't have a filter." But that sounds like something I would say. I said, "You did. Gigi didn't make it up and come home." And I thought about you and me because we kid that I frequently hear things come out of my mouth,
Oh yeah, it's too late.
and I hear it at the same time the person I'm talking to hears it.
Yeah, I know.
And
Going back to your relish, it's Mount Olive here, Mount Olive pickles.
no, okay.
So,
That
and
is that is the company, yeah.
yeah, yeah, and it's available, but it's slightly different from because I was looking for the name you gave me, and I went, hang on a second. And I went and looked at the relish in my fridge, and it was the, Walmart brand. I went, okay, I'm going to go up a brand. So I went to, when I made my order, I got some, and you're right, it's very, very different. And I'm not a pickle person at all, but I really like that.
Yeah, it is wonderful. We have, according to my clock and the time you originally gave me, 2 minutes left. Tell
Oh,
them how
wow.
they can work with you.
Oh, I'm easy to find. I mean, honestly, you can't throw a stick on the internet without hitting me or your partner in Success Radio, which is, largely hosting this podcast. And find me on LinkedIn. I'm easy to find. So are you. I mean, you're easy to find on LinkedIn, and we get a lot of questions that people send us like, can you answer these on the show? We will be happy to. Just send them to us. But I wanted to say, because we're talking, you just mentioned this sales infiltration chapter. That is from the closers part 2. And
Hmm.
I would really like to stress this to our audience. I haven't done it in a while, but having these books in front of you, parts 1 and part 2, while you're listening to the Closers Inner Circle podcast, lets you follow along. You can take notes directly in the margins, just don't tell me about it, and apply the strategies as we discuss them. They're not just great reading, they're your playbook for closing more sales and building lasting success. And they arrive with free shipping, and they're signed by Ben, and his business card is in there. So you can always find Ben easily. Um, go to they're on eBay. Go to www.ebay.com and then /STR/Ronzoni books, or make it easy on yourself. Just type Ronzoni books into Google, and it's going to take you straight to that store. RONZONE books. Anything that you have to share, Ben, before I reluctantly let you go? I always love talking with you on Wednesdays.
Bless you. I feel the same. I just want to thank Paul and Larry for sponsoring today's episode. And I'm going to get What's Right with America. I haven't read it, so I'm
It's a
going to get it.
terrific book. It really is. I think I shared this before. When the book came out, it came out just before the 4th of July. And bless them, they spent the 4th of July morning with me on a podcast.
Wow.
I know, I was impressed, but it's a terrific book.
Well, I thank them for being our sponsor today. And as always, it's a pleasure talking to you. You've made Wednesday my favorite day.
Well, that's my job.
See, a Southern lady can't just take a compliment.
No.
She's got to fire back.
Well, it's snark. That's my middle name. Well, it's my first language is snark. My second language is English, and you don't want to know what the third one is. So listen, everybody, thank you so much. Send us those questions, get the books, and get the book by What's Right with America and how we can keep it that way. To me, it's an important book. Ben, tell Gigi hi. I'll talk with you next week.
All right, dude. Bye.
Bye.